Good day, everyone. Eric from Helps Law Firm. Hope you can hear me okay. Glad to have you here. Um, my name is Eric Olsen, founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that helps seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. Please let me know on the chat if you can hear me okay. It is Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. Glad to have you here. I got things to talk about, and then also you can put your questions in the chat feature. And like Sunset says, don't be shy. I don't mind. There's no stupid questions here. And a lot of times we talk about the same things that we talked about yesterday or the day before. That's okay. Everyone on here knows that there's new seniors or people that need this help on the looking at these YouTube videos, and we don't mind if we get to answer the same questions. One reason is a lot of people like to hear the answer again. It gives them comfort. Okay, so welcome. Okay, so I'll start out with an inquiry we got here, and it says, hello, my name is, and I'm reaching out for help. I'm not currently on Social Security or retired, but I will be 65 in September of this year. My spouse broke a bone a year ago, and has been on workers' compensation. He lost his job due to this injury earlier this year, and he's been diagnosed with some disease that's going to hurt him and not going to be able to work again. And over the last year, we had to stop paying our credit card debt in order to survive. And she says, I recently learned that someone is suing me. Okay? So this is a pretty common scenario. You know, you're married or not married, and for whatever reason you can't work and you can't pay the credit card debt, and then you get sued. Okay? Now, in this instance, the person says the credit card is only in my name, not the spouse's name. They say they haven't received the paperwork yet, but I know they're trying to deliver the paperwork to me. And they say, I don't know what steps to take to protect myself and my spouse. Could you help direct me in the right direction? I'm overwhelmed with all of this. Thank you in advance if you can be of help. Yes, we can be of help. So my name's Eric. I've been an attorney now for 46 years. Started practicing in 1978, and the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. And our most important message to seniors and disabled persons is that federal and state laws protect your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefits. That income is protected. It can't be taken. Even if you're sued and they get a judgment, it can't be taken. There was a rule passed in 2012 that tells the banks that if they got a writ of garnishment, they have to examine where you got your money from. And if it came from a federal source like Social Security, that they're to automatically protect twice the amount of your monthly Social Security or federal benefit you get deposited into a bank account from garnishment, regardless if there's other monies in there. So not only is your income protected, you know, from them taking it from your Social Security or VA pension or your pension or wherever, it's also protected in your bank account. And then in 1978, the year I graduated from law school, there was a law passed called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That law provides, it tells debt collectors what they can and cannot do. And one of the things it says, if a debt collector is sent a cease and desist letter that tells the debt collector that you don't want to have communication from them anymore by phone or mail, then they've got to stop calling you and got to stop sending you to demand letters. And it also says if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to leave you alone. And that's what Helps does. See, before Helps was started, I filed tens of thousands of bankruptcies, a large consumer bankruptcy firm that's still in existence. And I left that firm to found Helps to be able to help seniors. Because a lot of seniors would come to us, and I'd tell them, I say, you don't need to file bankruptcy. Your income's protected. You can't afford it. But nevertheless, you know, when they went home, creditors would still call them on the phone. But with Helps, you know, you have an attorney, so the creditors are going to leave you alone. You're going to get peace, come back to your life. And that's what we do. Okay? So this person that contacted us, and they're from Texas, and it's a spouse worried about her spouse who's not going to be able to work, and she's still working, but it looks like she's not going to be working much longer. Her income is protected. She's been sued, and in Texas, if they even got a judgment against them, Texas doesn't allow garnishment of wages, so she really has nothing to worry about. Now, um, not all states have that same protection for wages, but we talked to you about that and why you don't need to worry. Okay. Um, so when she says, "Could you help direct me in the right direction? I'm overwhelmed with all this." We're going to direct her in the right direction. And when she gets done talking to us, I promise you, she will not be overwhelmed anymore. When you understand your rights and how your income is protected and what they cannot do, even if you're sued, you're going to be you're going to feel a lot better. You're going to be at peace. I promise you that. You can always call us toll free 855-435-7787. You can look at our YouTube videos. You can look at our webpage. Study us to your heart content. As far as I know, we're the only law firm in the nation that does what we do. A lot of people need this help. And if this isn't for you, maybe this is something someone else could use. We want the word to get out. Okay, we don't turn anyone away that needs the help that we provide. Now, in this particular person, if she enrolls with helps in part of our program, if she gets when she gets served with those legal papers, she's going to get a copy of it to us. And then we're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued her. We're going to let them know that their income is protected. It can't be taken from them. They're not going to do anything. They can get a judgment, but they can't collect from her. Okay, and if she has any, if either of them have any questions, they can call us as often as they need to. Okay, we don't want you to worry. So I see you've got some questions here. Um, so Denise asked, I want to say if we've joined like I have and we get some extra funds, could we just make a payment here and there? How does that work? I'm a little confused. I mean, Denise, you could pay your creditors if you want. Okay, don't have to. You can. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're lower income or modest or poor, maybe you might want to set that money aside for a need that you're going to have down the road. Maybe there's going to be an extra cold month this year you're going to need. Maybe there's going to be an extra doctor expense or some more medical that you're going to need some or something. Okay, you don't necessarily have to pay the debt. For persons that enroll in helps, we're not a debt settlement or debt management company. You don't pay the debt unless you want to. Now, when people enroll in helps, one of the things we're going to ask them is if you have a credit card with a smaller balance or nothing is owed that you still want to keep. And if you do, you could keep that credit card. Just keep making that payment. As long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card you're not going to pay, you can keep that credit card. So a lot of our clients, still have credit cards that they keep. Usually it's one with a small balance. Now, if in the future you weren't able to pay that, you could always give that to helps, and we'd send them a letter, and they'd leave you alone. You wouldn't have to pay it. So, and the other thing too with helps, if you did want to rebuild your credit, we do have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. After you've been part of helps for 90 days, you can contact us. We can send you an email, get you enrolled in that program, which is free to our clients. Okay. So Joe asked, if they get a judgment and you own your home, they can get a lien on your house. It may not affect you as long as you stay in your house. If you sell or kids inherit, it's a problem. It depends, Joe, and I'll explain that. Okay. Let's say you owned a home with a spouse and the debt was in your name, and then you own it. When you own it with your spouse, you own it. Almost for sure you own it with what's called joint tenants with survivorship rights, or they call it tenants by entirety. In other words, When one of you pass away, it goes to the other one automatically. So if the debt's in your name and you kick the bucket before your wife, then when you die, that property is going to go to your wife. And if the debt or judgment is in your name, it doesn't need to be paid because now the judgment lien disappears. A lien is only on property you own, and if you pass on, then when you pass on, you no longer own that property. You're in heaven, property goes to your wife, the lien disappears. So, for example, if you had your kids on the title with you before there was a judgment, then when you pass away, the property would automatically go to your children, lien would disappear. Or, for example, um, you know, uh, in a lot of states, you could sell a home, okay, and if you have equity in the home, it's protected by what's called a homestead exemption. You can sell the home and get the lien removed in some way. Sometimes you have to file bankruptcy to get the lien removed. In some states, you don't need to do that. So, yeah, there is a possibility that if you did pass away and there was a lien on the home, that it might need to be paid from your estate. And you're right, they're not going to take it while you're there. It's just not their practice to do that. But does that mean that you have to go without food or medicine or basic needs to be able to pay that debt so your kids could get a home that's free from any lien or encumbrance? No. In fact, if you think about it, almost half of seniors end up on Medicaid. Okay, they're poor, and they end up having to sell the home to be able to pay for their medical care, or when they pass on, the home needs to be sold and reimburse the government for the care in a nursing home. So sometimes seniors struggle to keep current on a house payment or pay a home or whatever, thinking they're going to leave something for their kids when in fact all they've done is made it so that the government gets paid in the end. So it's normally not a problem, okay? So Judy asked, but you can always call and ask us, Jill. We'll talk to you about it. Do you notice the time frame when a credit card company will sue if they're going to? It's 1 year or 2 years or any time in the future. More like any time in the future. Usually a credit card company, I don't think, would sue any sooner than 6 months, probably longer. Okay. It depends. Okay. But once again, Joyce, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because if your income's protected and you're getting Social Security or a pension, doesn't matter if they sue. You're not going to have to go to court. They can't take your Social Security. It's going to be protected in your bank account. If you're a member of HELPS, you're not going to have to communicate with a debt collector. And we're always there to answer your questions, so you don't need to worry. Okay? So Denise says, okay, because that's what the funds are for. I'm getting some funds for my roof. I was just asking. I'm so happy with you all. You're quick. Yeah. Yeah, if you need to save up some money to fix your roof, that's fine. You can save it up. They can put it in your bank account. Now, the only reason you wouldn't want to put in your bank account is if someone has a judgment, and then you'd want to make sure to keep your bank account less than twice the amount of federal benefits. So you take the extra cash, you could put it under the mattress, you could put it on a preloaded debit card, or you could put it in a cashier's check, some other place. Okay? So Salt Lake asks, I'm very worried. Judgment awarded to creditor. Attorney is the creditor. It's for $37,000. I don't know what to do. They'll come to the door, go after our personal property, nothing of value. Car paid for off. So you're East Salt Lake. I'm guessing you might be from Utah. Okay, so whether you are or not, and especially by the rest of your question, I'll tell you a little bit about Utah. Different states have different laws and different rules that have to do with collections. Utah is one of the states that's kind of in the dark ages. They have not the best protections for people that owe money, which is kind of sad. They have constables in Utah. These are private parties that a county would contract to serve legal papers, and also they're authorized to, to evict people or to carry out executions if you owe money. And then Utah has exemption laws that are really come from the real dark ages. They list specific pieces of property that are exempt, like might be a dining room table. I know one of them is artwork that was painted by your family only. There's no exemption for a couch. There's no exemption for a dining room table. No exemption for your lawnmower. No exemption for your computer. So, and they don't have what's called a wild card exemption, which is an exemption that says if it's not part of the state exemption, then it's covered under this lump sum. Instead, they list specific things. So if you owe a debt in Utah, one of these constables can come out and say, okay, I'm going to pick up this, that, or the other thing that's not on this list of state laws. I had a real problem with this. Have had for years, because I'm 76. I've been doing this for a long time. I wrote Salt Lake Tribune. I wrote legislators in Utah. I'm not from Utah, but I wrote them, and I told them about this problem. Finally, I wrote the Deseret News, and finally they got back to me a couple of years ago. And a nice woman, a reporter, actually I think she lived in Massachusetts, but she worked for the Deseret News. She interviewed me. I told her about the problem. I gave her one of my clients. And then on one Sunday, the Deseret News had on the front page of it talked all about this problem in Utah. And since we haven't really had a problem, okay, East Salt Lake with Utah. One of our clients, if they get one of these letters from one of these constables, we reach out to the constable, explain what the situation is. They leave them alone. So you contact us, we'll see what we can do. Okay. Now, what the constables would do, the threat they would have is they'd have like a storage facility. And if you didn't, pay this, then they could literally pick up your property that's not on this list, put it in the storage facility, and then auction it. And use that as a threat. And for that reason, because of that, for a long time, I haven't checked it recently, Utah had one of the highest rates of bankruptcy in the nation. That's because these constables were threatening people to take their property. Well, they'd file bankruptcy. A bankruptcy trustee didn't care about that extra property because it wasn't worth enough. But a constable would use it as a threat to intimidate people to making arrangements to pay them. And they would get kind of a commission. It was like I said, it was not good. I don't think it's happening anymore. So you can talk to one of our attorneys. We'll talk to you about it. If you want to talk to me, you can. Okay. So Salvador asked, I work for Uber Eats and make around $400 per week. Could a creditor garnish that wages? Garnish that wage? Well, you're self-employed. I've never seen any self-employed person like this ever be garnished. Creditor would have to sue you, get a judgment. They have to know where you're working, and you probably get paid when you do the work. You're not going to have a problem for a lot of reasons. Okay. Now, like I said, in some states don't even permit garnishment of wages. For example, you could have a regular employment in Texas, and they don't permit your wages to be garnished. And that's not the only state where that happens. And some states have large exemption rules. California, Washington, Nevada, a lot of them. Okay, so you shouldn't worry. Yeah, Utah. East Salt Lake said, yeah, they're from Utah. See, I knew that because East Salt Lake, and then the things you were saying made me realize, oh, this person's from Utah. You don't need to worry. In fact, you could probably find that article on Google. They have a picture of one of our clients there and what he went through. Okay. And after that, it quieted down. And I haven't really heard a problem from Utah lately. But if there is a problem, we'd know what to do. It's not that it's not that bad, Katrina. You don't need to move. You don't need to move. I mean, I'm a little bit of hyperbole. I kind of, when I say dark ages, Utah is a wonderful state. They do a lot of wonderful things, but there's a few areas where there's a few problems. But they're not the only state that has a problem in these areas. So Farmhouse says, Bank of America got a judgment against me, and the judge ordered payments to the law firm for $35 a week. Helps had written them prior. I still don't. No, the judge can't order if you're getting Social Security or a pension. A judge can't order you to pay money. That's not the judge's job. Maybe the judge was trying to be a little bit helpful to everyone, thinking that, well, this guy can't afford very much, but maybe if he paid $35 a month, so I'm going to order him to pay $35 a month. He had no authority to do that. I'd say that to his face. No, because it's the job of the attorney that's got the judgment to try to collect from you by a writ of garnishment or whatever. The judge can't order you to pay money from debt that you have or from income that you have that's protected, that's exempt. Your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefits. Why would a judge order payments if you're on protected income? Well, that's just right, Katrina, just because, some judges are not perfect. Boy, have I ever learned that in my law career. Judges are not perfect, but they are just like anyone else. They make a lot of mistakes. That's why we have appeals courts and appeals courts and appeals courts. But maybe I should file bankruptcy. No, you talk to us. You don't need to do that. No. I'm old enough that I have a lot of experience in this area, know a lot of stories from the past. Okay. So this person contacts us from Connecticut, and they said, I belong to Helps, but every time I try to email it doesn't work. I have a small claims court paper. What do you need? Well, we need you to get us the copy of the paperwork, and you need to send it to the right email address, which is helps is here. Oh, okay. info at helpsishere.org. Some people will put helpishere.org. They won't put the S at the end of help. What does the S stand for? Senior. Helps. Help eliminate legal problems for seniors. Helpsishere.org. You got to put an S on the end of help. Helpsishere.org. Kind of a cute little name, I think. Help eliminate legal problems for seniors. Helpsishere.org. You got to put an S on the end of help. That's probably why we didn't get it. Now, you can also text it to us. We have a text number. You can fax it to us. You can get it in the mail. We want to get whatever's easier for you. So when people enroll in Helps, we keep them on the phone. We send them an email or immediately while they're on the phone confirming they're a client of Helps. So that way, when we hang up the phone, if they get a call from a creditor 5 minutes later, they're going to tell them, I'm represented by Helps. They give them our name and number, and if that creditor calls us, they're going to be as our client. And we're going to show they're our client. We're going to say, yeah, we represent this person. We'll leave them alone. And then we send a cease and desist letter out to that debt collector, and they're going to leave you alone. You can have peace come back to your life. Okay? Katrina asks, so if you don't pay, will they get an arrest warrant? No. No, because the judge said for you to pay? No. No. You can talk to us. We'll go over this with you. We'll give you legal information on this that's going to help you. Contempt of court? No. I mean, the judge can't. Or the only way you could find yourself in trouble with the court is if someone sues you and gets a judgment, and then a creditor could ask that you answer some more questions, and they might have you This is very rare, and I even hate to talk about it because people freak out when I talk about it. A judge could order you to come into court for for what is commonly called a debtor's exam, where and they'd put you in a room and the attorney would ask questions about your finances. Okay, um, and if you got a motion for a debtor's exam, which is rare, okay, uh, then you would need to go to that. But you contact helps. We reach out to the other attorney. We show them your proof of your income, and almost always they're going to agree to say, okay, you don't need to come. But in that instance, you would need to go because that the order for you to come into court and answer questions is signed by a judge, and if you didn't honor that order, then you'd be violating the order of the judge. But a judge, if he tells you got to pay $35 a month, that's not in writing. He doesn't have any authority to do that. Call and talk to us. No, will we receive anything before the constable shows up at the door? No. Um, call and talk to us. We got an email that explains that, East Lake. If they were, you'd just say, you don't need to open it up. You say you're represented by helps. Tell them to get a hold of us, and we'll get a hold of the constable. But we'll talk to you about it. Don't need to worry. Don't need to worry. And I'm serious when I say this. I don't need to worry. 4 words. That's my favorite 4 words. Don't need to worry. Okay. So, Ms. H, years ago, I went to talk with a lawyer about seeing a certain judge. They were afraid to see. I told the judge was nice to me. They asked me if I was with the right judge. I said yes. Yeah, attorneys do what's called forum shop. They look for, a forum is a place where you meet, and that's what a courtroom is. It's a place where you meet, and some attorneys want to get a certain judge to hear certain things. That's politics. Okay. But you're not going to need to worry about. You're not going to need to worry about judges, you guys. On a video, I heard you talking about Social Security income. Do we need to let Social Security know if we sell something on eBay? No. No, you don't need. If you're on Social Security, uh, you don't need to let them know if you make more money. Now, if you might need to file tax returns, but that's not going to affect your Social Security unless you're under what I don't know, 66 and a half or 67. At a certain age, then it doesn't matter what you make, you get your full Social Security. But whatever little you sell on eBay isn't going to make any difference. You don't need to worry about that. Okay, so Robert asked, I'm a member of HELPS. I live in Portland, Oregon. If a credit card company wins a judgment against you and they sue you, is the summons to appear always delivered in person? Well, okay, before they get the judgment, they have to sue you. That's when a summons comes. Okay, when you're sued, uh, someone would normally knock on the door and give you what's called a summons and complaint. A summons tells you where the court is, what you need to do if you're going to dispute the lawsuit, and then the complaint describes who you owe the money to, how much, etc. And yeah, it's almost always done in person. In some jurisdictions, they can do it in another way. They might even be allowed to send it by certified mail, or you do it by publishing, but it's almost always served in person. Now, they could serve you someone where you live at your house, like in Oregon. If it's a person over 14, if they can serve it on that person at that house. If they answer the door, they can, and that's service to you. Then the creditor would have to follow up with sending you a copy in the mail. Yeah. We want to make here at Helps. We want to make a difference in all of seniors' lives that are struggling financially. We want you to share this information with others. I just talked to too many seniors all day long that need this help, and they don't know anything about it. And what's sad is that there's just kind of a lack of information on this area. You know, there's these debt management companies. If you've been listening to me at all, I talk to a lot of seniors that are enrolled in debt management, nonprofit debt management, and they're never told the fact that their income is protected, that their Social Security is protected, so is their pension. Instead, they're enrolled in these debt management companies, nonprofit ones. Okay, and some of them are put into utter poverty, making a payment they can't afford to make. Okay, which is sad. They should be referring them to helps. Now, there's also debt settlement companies which are for profit. They're not going to tell you either that your income is protected. So, right, get the information out on helps. You know, when you meet someone or you talk to someone, you know, if you feel so inclined, if it looks like it, a little voice in your head says, maybe this person needs to hear about helps. You can tell them about us. You don't have to tell them you're part of us or you have a problem, but you can tell them you heard about this law firm that helps seniors that have financial problems. Yin Yang talks about debtors exams being common in Canada. Well, I deal with this a lot, and they're all over the country, and I wouldn't say they're common, but I mean, if it happens to you or a friend, I guess it's common, right? And you're right. When you say thrown in jail, well, what happens technically is if you've been ordered to go to a debtor's exam, and that's signed by a judge. And once again, I hate to talk about it because it's not going to happen to you, and you don't go, then what could happen, you could get served with another set of papers saying, hey, you need to come to court because you're in contempt of court for not going to that debtor's exam. And then if you don't go to that second paper you're served with, then they could put an arrest warrant. Now, it's not a warrant where they come out and find you. It'd be if you're driving on the car and they pick you up, then yeah, you could. And I've seen that happen. Never with any of our helps clients. Never, ever. Okay, but that's why we always tell our clients, if you get served with papers signed by a judge telling you come to a court at a certain date and time, call us. We'll talk to you. Now, I'm not talking about a summons and complaint when you're sued originally. Sometimes when you get sued with a summons and complaint, in certain courts they're going to have a date and time. But that's if you're going to contest the lawsuit. We're talking about a debtor's exam is where they've already sued you and they've gotten a judgment. And they want to ask you questions. Once again, highly unlikely it's going to happen. See, when you enroll in helps, we send a letter to that attorney who sued you. We're letting them know that your income's protected. They get a judgment, but they're not, it's a waste of their time to do anything else to try to collect from you. But the nice thing about helps, when helps was designed, we designed it so we would represent seniors ongoing. When you enroll in helps, it's not like, well, you're my attorney for a month or for this particular problem or for 6 months. No, we are your attorney literally forever to get debt collector contact, so you don't have to deal with them. That means you can call us whenever you want, no matter how often. My pet peeve, if you've heard me before, you'll know what I'm going to say, is that if someone calls and says, Eric, I've been really worried. I didn't want to bother you because I know you guys were busy. No, that's my pet peeve. You call us if you're ever worried or scared because we can answer your questions. So you're not worried and scared. That's the whole purpose of help, so that seniors wouldn't have to be worried and scared because they don't need to be. So Canucksapala talks about in federal fact information sheet. Yeah, a few states, okay, senior Social Security income and after default judgment obligated to complete the fact form sheet for the plaintiffs. Thanks. Yeah, so that's called a fact information sheet for Florida. Some idiot clerk drafted that form and they put it in a rule. And so if someone gets a judgment against you, they can send you that. It asks a lot of inane questions that don't apply. But it can be scary because it doesn't tell a senior, by the way, they can't touch your income. But one of the questions is they want to know your kids' names and addresses and I think phone numbers. You don't have to fill that out. It's none of their business. But we help our clients. We have an email that explains the fact information sheet. We'll help people on that, how to deal with that. And other states have different things like that. Um, and so debt collectors will use state law sometimes, try to intimidate a senior into paying a debt when they don't have to. See, you got to realize a debt collector doesn't have to tell a senior about their rights, even if they get a judgment. All their only thing they have to say is we're a debt collector. Any information we get can be used for that purpose. They don't have to tell you your rights, that your income is protected. But you're going to hear it from us. We're going to tell you what your rights are, so you don't need to worry about this kind of stuff. We've got other attorneys that helps. I could kick the bucket tomorrow and everyone would be just fine. Okay? You wouldn't have anything to worry about. I promise you. I'm not going to kick the bucket though. I've got a lot of years left. The brains behind is my daughter, who is an attorney, Kaisa. So it helps. And then we have other attorneys too. That helps. Someday we'll be really big. Okay? We need to be. There's like close to half of seniors have incomes within 200% of the poverty line, and a lot of them owe debt. You know, a lot of them owe debt. So, but the word needs to get out more than it is. Robert says, before joining Helps in February this year, I was literally in a state of despair. Yeah, I hear that a lot, Robert. And if you're listening to me talk for the first time, or you've been, and you're in a state of despair, you call us on the phone. We got great paralegals and attorneys that are going to answer your questions, and you're going to feel a lot better after you talk to us. You're going to be relieved. Okay, we can help you. Okay. Roberto asks, can you please elaborate as to how many paralegals or attorneys and resources you have on your staff? I'm a member, but I don't know what resources you have. Plenty, and more if we need them. I think we don't need a lot of attorneys. I think there's 4 attorneys now, and then we've got a staff of paralegals, and other support staff, a couple dozen maybe. We're pretty efficient. I don't think we get too many complaints. We try to call people back and answer their questions. We're extremely automated, Roberto. Extremely automated. But if we need more help, we'll get it. So Eastlake asked if they know our income is protected, still try to garnish. Does that just sit as an eternal garnishment in case we ever went over the protected amount? No. There might be an exception, but normally a garnishment is like a snapshot in time. Okay, so if you get $1,500 in Social Security, $3,000 in your bank account is protected. If the bank gets rid of garnishment at 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning, and they look at your bank account and there's less than $3,000 in there, they rip up the garnishment. And then if you deposit a bunch of money at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, garnishment already took place. They have to look at it that specific time. Now, there may be a state or two where the garnishment on a bank account might be good for a certain number of days, but it'd be really tough on a bank. So I can't tell you a state where that's the case. Okay, but there may be, but I don't know. You don't need to worry about it. But that's one reason why I tell our clients, if you're sued, just keep less than twice the amount in your bank account. Doesn't matter what other monies are in there or where they came from. It's still protected. And we don't see them try to garnish very often. But you don't need to worry about it. Okay? Yeah, like the worst that can happen, you get a knock on the door. So what? Right. So this person, they wrote in, they say, will they go for your kids to pay these bills or debts? If us seniors leave our pensions or annuity to our kids, will they need to pay these debts. Will they go? Will they go for your kids? Well, no. If you have a debt and you die, your child isn't going to be responsible for it. Now, if you have a pension, when you die, your kids aren't going to get your pension. Annuity, they may get some of your annuity, but it may be a direct benefit that it goes directly to them. Creditors won't be part of your estate. Okay, depends on the type of annuity. How often do they try to garnish or levy? Uh, Not that often. I used to give a percentage. I don't do it anymore because I've been scolded. Because once in a while I gave that percentage and someone got more than that and they were upset. And so the attorneys that helped said, Eric, don't give a percentage. We don't want to have to deal with calls. Eric said only this percent and I've had this many percent. Sue me. Okay, file a lawsuit. So usually that's with filing a lawsuit. How often do they try to garnish or levy? Well, that's pretty rare. I can say that emphatically. They'd have to have a judgment. They have to know where you work or where you bank at. But it won't matter. Your bank automatically protects the money in your bank account up to twice the amount, right? No, that's the nice thing about helps is there's no hourly rate. You can talk to us every day if you need to when you enroll in helps. You know, and you know, it's the way it's got to be. Okay, you know. So Richard says, on like a tax lien, are they allowed to shotgun all the banks looking for accounts, or only a specific bank that you use? No, well, we don't see the IRS. We're talking if we're talking about a state can't touch money out of your bank account for a state tax. It's protected just like a credit card judgment would be. Your bank account is protected automatically from a state tax collector. Can't take it out of your bank. Now the IRS theoretically could garnish your bank account. It's not a bomb where they send it to everyone, specific bank. But we don't see them doing that, especially with seniors. What they would do is they would uh, send a notice of intent to offset 15% of your Social Security. And they're unlikely they're even going to do that. But if they did that, they wouldn't do it for 60 days, would give you a chance to contact the IRS and get on currently not collectible status. We got an email that explains that. And so if you owe the IRS taxes, and then the IRS has 10 years to collect the tax. After 10 years, the taxes it goes away. Is it true now they can put medical debt back on credit report? You probably read the same article I read. It's kind of in limbo. I don't know if they can do it today or tomorrow. We don't see a lot of medical providers putting negative entries on people's credit report. They don't do it. They might send it to a collection agency that might do it, but it's on limbo whether that's going to take place. Richard, I heard they will contact every bank on your town. No, IRS doesn't have time to do that. No, I've never seen that happen. Can they garnish an eBay account if they find out we have one? Well, anything is possible, Eastlake. I mean, it is possible on Saturday night the Martians could come to your house for dinner, right? It's not impossible. It is possible. There are probably aliens out there, and they could land and they could make they. Do you worry about that? No. Is it going to happen? I don't think so. Or it's possible you could walk out and get hit by a bolt of light. Okay, you could possibly you go to Circle K Friday night at 10:07 p.m. and get hit by a drunk driver. Now, do you live your life that way? No. Okay, it's possible, but if it did happen, we know what to do. Okay, they're not going to garnish your eBay account. Not going to do that. Now, so a lady in about 1958 or 59, a meteorite went through the roof, and there's a picture on the internet. She's in the hospital and got a big bruise on her stomach. But she lived to the late 1970s. It didn't kill her. And a couple of years ago, a lady in British Columbia was laying in bed taking a nap, and a meteorite went through the roof and landed on the bed next to it. It never touched her. So you could get hit by a meteorite, but if you're worried about getting hit by a meteorite, worry about getting that eBay account garnished. Yeah, you can hit the like button, but you can also subscribe to our channel. You know, the more people find out about this channel and they can listen to it, the more people are going to call helps and get relief in their life. Well, they garnish the bank that has the account, but as long as the balance in the account is less than twice the amount of your Social Security you get each month, it's protected. Right, Brian? Yeah, you're going to be fine. Everyone's going to be fine. If you've got a question, you call us. Don't worry about the Utah Constables. Yeah, those Utah Constables. You got on some of their website, and the guy's a big old guy, and he's got a big badge and a gun. And he's not a law enforcement officer. He's a civil guy. I mean, he's a contract guy. It's the craziest law. The reason is the counties they get contracts with these guys, and they pay the county money. It's crazy. Anyway, don't get me started. Yeah, don't worry. So this person, if I don't pay a debt, can they go after the equity of my home? Almost every state has what's called a homestead exemption, which protects a certain amount of equity in your home. Some states have unlimited equities in homes. Some states have very generous amount of equities in homes. Some have less generous. But it's not the practice of a consumer judgment creditor like a credit card company to ever try to take the equity in your home to try to foreclose on your home for a debt, for a credit card debt or some type of debt. They don't do it for a lot of reasons. Okay? For a lot of reasons, they don't do it. My sheriff who delivers is so kind. Laugh out. I'm not surprised. There's good people in this world, and I imagine these sheriffs sometimes see every sheriff's office. They have what's called a civil deputy in almost all counties in the United States. There'll be a sheriff. He's not the guy that gives you tickets or arrests people or puts them in jail. His job is to serve legal papers. Okay, and he's a civil deputy, but he has the uniform and he drives the car, so he could look kind of scary maybe. But I imagine he serves these papers all day to people. He has to deal with evictions, people that are being sued. And how could you do that day after day and not have a heart after a while and feel for some of the struggles that people are going through? Yeah. So this person contacts us from Ohio and they say, Social Security is my only income. They have a lot of credit card debt, but they haven't defaulted yet. And they're worried about a car or insurance company using credit score to determine eligibility. They can consider that a score as a factor, but can't use that. It depends on the state. Sometimes a credit score can cause your insurance rates to go up a little bit. Okay, there's different ways to tackle that. Some states don't allow that to be a factor. So this person, this guy from Ohio, he's an Air Force veteran. Anyway, it looks like they enrolled in helps, but I guess the question they were worried about was, was credit going to affect their insurance rates? I'm not sure about Ohio. Maybe. You could always Google that, but the nice thing about helps is if you want, you can get your credit back a year and a half, 2 years. You can work it up to 700 credit score. Your credit is based on your recent credit history. So if you got old credit debt you didn't pay, it gets written off. But if you rebuild new credit, then the credit bureau, that's what they rely on, your recent credit. So you can rebuild your credit, believe it or not. We we've got we've talked about this a lot on YouTube Live. A lot of people they pitched in, they said, yeah, that's right, Eric. I've been part of helps for a couple of years now. I got a 700 credit score or whatever. Okay. We got a few more minutes here. This guy says, I'm a disabled veteran who has survived on disability benefits. I pulled my credit report from annual report and discovered that a creditor's been trashing my credit report for years. The debt is uncollectible due to state law regarding statutory time. My disability began in 2019. Can anything be done? Yeah, you bet it can be done. Um, if you're a client of helps, we got this 7 steps to a 720 credit score. One of the first steps is clean up your credit report. You can get a copy of your credit report. You can dispute entries. This company may be able to be sued if they're, there's a lot of things that can be done. You bet. Well, I'm going to skip this next one I've got here because it's kind of long. Let me see if I get a shorter one here. Okay, yeah, this would be a good one to end with. This person contacts us from North Carolina. They're 73. They get $1,800 in Social Security, and they have a home with some equity in it. It's a mobile home on land. It's worth about $160,000, and they owe $50,000. One thing this person could do, they could look at a reverse mortgage. You can have a reverse mortgage on a mobile home on land. If I remember right, reading this, they had a pretty hefty house payment, like $700. If they were able to get a reverse mortgage, then the house payment would be paid off. They'd have $700 more in their pocket. They wouldn't have to use the money to pay the debt either. So I'll read the rest. It says that they called. The person lost their job a little over a year ago. They've been living on credit cards since then. Probably worried to death. Glad that they found help. She now received a summons and complaint from U.S. Bank. This is from one of our attorneys that always calls our clients, especially our women clients, sweet, sweet, sweet. She says, sweet lady that likes to ask a lot of questions. We love that. We like questions and understands how everything works. That's what we're here for. She is excited to be a client and see. Oh, she's excited to see Eric on YouTube. I don't know why, but anyway, that's what it says. She bought her mobile home land has quite a bit of equity in North Carolina, where the homestead exemption is only $35,000. She's been worried about this, but I assured her that she may add her brother to the property and as a joint tenant, and that means when she passes, it's going to go to her brother. We talked about the ups and downs of that and how to prepare the paperwork. We have an email that talks about that. It says she was served with a lawsuit and she knows that more will be coming. Not necessarily. Just because you've been sued once doesn't mean you're going to be sued more than that. Once again, you're not going to need to worry about it. She has a vehicle with a lot of equity that's free and clear. She wants her nephew to have it. Ultimately, she's going to add him to the title, even though I did tell her card collectors don't want to pick up vehicles. They don't. And we sent her a bunch of emails at it. Last thing it says is uh, she is very happy to be a helps client. Our clients are happy to be helps clients. Why wouldn't they be? You don't have to file bankruptcy. You don't have to deal with debt collectors. You always got an attorney to call if you're worried or scared. Yeah. Some of your comments are. Sorry. Okay. Okay. I've got just a couple minutes. This guy calls us from Texas. He had 1,100 in Social Security, not a lot. He had to leave his job after he was diagnosed with something. He has to use crutches and a wheelchair. Going to the store one day, he fell, broke some bones, and racked up $70,000 in hospital bills. He says they were poorly treated by one of the hospitals. Sorry. We discussed how his income was protected. He didn't need to worry, and he didn't need to worry about those medical bills. Yeah. So if you're like one of these people that we're talking about, if you're having financial problems, you're a senior or not a senior and you're getting Social Security or disability or protected income like we discussed, and creditors are bothering you, you can call Helpson. We'll go over this with you. We'll talk to you once, twice, two, three, four, 5 times. And when you decide to enroll, we can enroll you over the phone. We can do that literally instantaneously. We don't need any money up front to enroll someone. Maybe 1 out of 5 or 6 or 7 of our clients get our help for free. Those that pay a very minimal amount. And the payment doesn't become till between 30 and 60 days in the future. It might be $40 for 24 months, then $20 for 24 months. It could be $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, or $20 for 24 months and $10 for 24 months and free thereafter. So it's very affordable. You don't have to worry about paying this other debt. We're always there for you to talk to us. Talk to us, no matter how often. So it looks like we've come to the end of another hour. I've enjoyed it. Thanks for all your good participation. Please share what helps does with others. And yes, I will be here tomorrow. Okay, so same time tomorrow. And call us if you have any questions. You can also put them in the comments. We'll try to look at those and answer them there too. Okay, everyone have a wonderful day. Goodbye. And press the like button. Subscribe.